Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the SEO Club. I hope you're enjoying our channel. Our content is getting a lot of likes, and I really like seeing you coming back. Our invite was extended to Raman, a fantastic SEO, especially for affiliation in iGaming. I had a pleasure to share stage with him a few times, so I know he's a fantastic speaker, extremely good knowledge. And today we will be talking together about SEO for affiliate websites in iGaming. Roman, welcome.
Welcome. It's very good to be here. And I've been watching the SEO Club, so I'm honored to be here finally.
We're very happy that you are one of ours. Obviously, we like to bring people with lots of knowledge, and I watch your career quite long time. I know who you are. I know how active you are. I know what you achieved. I think your career is nothing short of impressive. So we are very happy that you accepted our invitation. I would say that your SEO affiliates is very, very strong, the knowledge in that. You are mainly with affiliation. I'm not really sure you have been with any operator, but I know that you have been with Catena, you have been with Wiz, you always been with affiliation, and therefore I think you are the correct person to give us some insights how to work on SEO affiliate and how to rank SEO affiliate websites.
Well, it's such a big topic, but we'll try to make it simple today for sure. Yes, I've been working in affiliate mostly. I do tend to think it's more competitive than operator. I don't want to say operators are not competitive, but in affiliation, actually, SEO has to be sort of your bread and butter. 90, maybe 95% of your traffic is coming from Google usually. So it's particularly important. This particular channel is incredibly important. So I can share some of my knowledge regarding this because most recently we actually did a project from scratch. So we launched an affiliate from scratch and we looked closely at it for a period of about a year and a half, let's say. So we could see everything from the early days to now being somewhere in the top five of the market that we penetrated, basically. So Let's let's start on this journey. I think everything begins with a proper plan. Of course, this is not no news, but it should be said. You need to do your due diligence, let's say. You need to be informed about the market that you're trying to get into. It's not the same thing to launch something in Romania. I'm Romanian, so I'll use that. It's not the same thing to launch an affiliate here or to try to beat an affiliate from the UK. It's not the same sort of piece of cake. So you need to be careful about this localization factor and about your market. The first thing that we did in the beginning was to run a full market analysis, competitor analysis, and then we looked into keyword research as well. After keyword, we did keyword sort of clusterization and keyword mapping. And only after that did we start to think about the URL structure. All of these things need to be sort of correlated between them. Okay, so first you start with your market research. Is there enough place? Is there enough space for you there as a competitor? How strong is your competition? For how long have they been doing this? Are they spectacular? Are they not? Do you think that you can beat them in a time frame of, let's say, 1 year to 2 years, something like that? Because let's be real about something. I don't think you can expect to launch and immediately sort of show up, right? So it needs to be, you need to understand this effort as well. Okay, so after we saw that there's enough space for us, let's say, and after we saw that the competition doesn't really frighten us that much, then we started doing keyword research, in which basically you're looking at keyword volumes and the intents that the user has, basically that the users have. And then what you want to really test is the potential of the market in terms of search volume. And you try to do a little bit of math there in order to figure out, okay, what if I get 10% of this market, basically? Will I be profitable in the long term or not? And again, here, we usually look at the worst case scenario, not really the best case scenario, because that's not how you build a business, basically. We look yeah, we don't tend to think about it as if we were not really that successful, let's say, in the beginning. And after you've been doing that, of course, as well, and you're validating your idea slowly, then you're looking into keyword clusterization because that's quite an important step. That gives you the main bone, the main structure of your website, and then you turn that into URL structure. And there's no there's nothing really to say here that is so complex. You need to apply it in a very logical way. We did something that we felt made sense for the users, but of course made sense for Googlebot as well. So we went, for example, very specific, and I think the most important thing here is to take scalability into account from the early days. We built a website, for example, in the casino space, but if tomorrow you want to switch the website to a crypto vertical or to a betting vertical, you can do so. Because the way we have imagined and envisioned the site navigation, the site structure, the folders, everything basically was already prepared for further expansion. So I think that particular thing is usually omitted, or it's a challenge whenever, let's say, buying a website, right? Because you inherit all of these things. Now, if you build a website from scratch, you actually have this amazing opportunity. And I think it's the dream of an SEO to have a blank canvas, right? And then to start actually doing the structure as if you always wanted to do. Because let's be honest, whenever you inherit a website or whenever you buy a website, you get it. And then with redirections and a lot of changes, you start to map it in the way that you want. Well, with the new website, that's not the case, right? So we built a very logical, very scalable structure as well, basically. We looked at the main intents of the user, and then we created main folders, let's say, for those intents. It helped us a lot with breadcrumbs as well to make this logical architecture directly in the URLs. So we didn't go for a all the URLs on the root sort of thing. Okay, so we went with folders, nicely structured and so on. Of course, you can use breadcrumbs or you can use folders in order to create the architecture of your website. It works both ways, but since you're doing it from scratch, you'd rather use folders. You need to be very careful with with scalability. How many operators, for example, are you going to have? If you're prepared to take on, let's say, 40 operators, but you're not prepared as a website structure to take 1,000 more, it's not really an ideal website structure from my point of view. So scalability is everything when you're at that step, let's say. And then, by the way, feel free to stop me anytime because
No, no,
I'll
it's very
just
interesting. It's just
go ahead.
absolutely folders are important when you look at some of the websites that are ranking really high and you look at their structure and you screaming frog and extract it. There is no folder structure. Everything is on a root. Very little things. Games are not under games. Casinos are not under casinos. They are just there. So I'm really with you because every time I look into some project, I'm looking like, how did you build this like this? It was obvious someone started and just throw things, see what sticks, and then they got lucky or they had enough budget or I don't know what it was, but their ranking and in my SEO mind is always like, but it's so unorganized, it's so messy.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy you're going to the folders because if I would be building something, it would be very organized, and I would rather maybe make a mistake in the beginning and then go back and reorganize it than have a very messy website 3 years from now. So yes,
Yeah.
I love folders. I'm with you on that one.
Like I said, you probably those big websites are using other forms of internal linking in order to create their structure and to create the hubs and create the clusters that they need. But why would you do that? I think most of the time it's just legacy. Websites tend to have been built 10 years ago, let's say, when the same principles did not apply, and people sort of just patch them and patch them and
Exactly.
patch them as they go along.
But if you would take over one of those very messy websites, would you leave it because it's ranking, or would you try to actually organize it nicely? Because in your heart as an SEO, you want things to be organized, thinking
I
that
mean, that's a great
redirections
question.
works, but we know we lose some value and maybe we will mess up the journeys and maybe the redirection will break
Yeah,
in the end. Would you actually risk it?
I've had this case as well, and to be honest, I wouldn't risk it. I would leave the URL as it is, but I would play a lot with what I have at hand, basically. So I was mentioning breadcrumbs in the past. I also do something like UX links, I call them, where you have all kinds of buttons and images that can help you in internal linking for users specifically. Then you have your internal linking inside of the content, so content links or contextual links, if you want to call them like that. So I would leverage those in order to build up the structure that I'm imagining from a folder perspective. Now, because changing URLs is, I'm really against it. People wanted to convince me a lot of time to change or adjust URLs. And I just didn't want to do it because it's an identifier, basically. And on the web, it's sort of everything. It's like your ID for each and every page that you have. So yeah, I wouldn't change that, and I would simply use other ways to create the website structure that I have in mind.
And obviously, you will support it with XML map, right? Sitemap to make sure that Google can find the most important pages, which
Yeah, of
does not mean
course,
you need to
of
have
course.
all of the pages
That's
there, but the ones that you actually really want to rank.
that's
Yeah, I will support it.
sometimes some of these things tend to be like no-brainers once you've been there, for a lot of time. But yes, of course, they're quite important. What do you do with your robots.txt? What do you do with your sitemaps and so on? So I would say that once you figured out, because we were the structural side of things, okay, once you put on paper, we literally did a mapping. You can do it in anything. We did it in Google Sheets, to be honest. It was that simple, where we simply mapped all of the intents, all of the pages that we had, including main keywords, secondary keywords, pages that are brothers, sisters, call them as you want, basically, but everything was mapped before we even started creating a single piece of content. And after you're done with this and you really think it through, then it's time to, of course, start working. And there's so many things to consider here as well. I would say that the biggest mistake that I've seen so far in websites or new websites launching as affiliates, let's say, is the fact that they think that their devs know SEO very well, or they think that design knows SEO, or they think that the product manager knows SEO, and they think that everyone is on the same board, but that's not the reality at all in practice. So whenever every time we sit down with external stakeholders, let's call them like this, basically, and we have conversations with them, we understand that we're not on the same page most of the times. And we can be on the same page, but that conversation needs to happen. Otherwise, you can consider, I don't know, it's not a failure or it's not a failed project, but it will be soon enough if you don't do that. So the first thing that we did here was to sit down with the development team, with the design team, and we started mapping all of the elements that we found to be crucial to successful SEO implementation, as little as how the breadcrumbs looks like and how it's read by Google, because one is the design, the other one is the code, and they need to match very well. You would be surprised to see how many things can happen there. From table of contents, from how the images should be loaded, for example, you name it. You need to have a very good list of elements where you say, okay, this, I don't know, this list needs to be a list. It cannot be divs, this table needs to be a table and so on. And you need to spell it out most of the times. So you cannot just leave it to chance that everything is going to work out the way you imagine it. So all of these conversations are incredibly crucial. And by the way, we still haven't done any content so far in this discussion, right? So just to say that there's a lot of preparation
So far, we've done
before you do
planning
anything.
and communicating, two extremely important things. Now, third step would be what I'm just putting it into my simple words: planning and communicating, which I really love because the communication part, planning, most people started to understand, but the communication part, especially in big companies, is either really skipped or very, very thin, or not everybody is included. People tend to work in silos rather than cooperating together, and things go to hell. So, yeah, I love the communication part. What would be your third part? Is it the content
Ah,
yet?
I would probably add in the communication sector the documentation aspect of it because you might
It's your
have
it's a birth certificate of any website, isn't it? So that's a
exactly.
good point as well.
So
Logs, log
you
files.
might have, you might have calls and you might have discussions with everyone where everyone is on the same page at the end of the call. The end is the call is done. You move on to the implementation phase and you discover the most interesting things. So obviously everything needs to be documented and sent in a written format, basically. And as SEOs, I think many times we're I'll use this word, maybe many times we tend to be a bit arrogant when it comes to sending the documentation over. I think you need to put in the effort and you need to do most of the job basically before you send something to a developer. So you need to be as specific as possible. I think that if you ever worked with development teams and with Jira and with the way you create a ticket and so on, maybe you are used to it already, basically. If you didn't, then probably you're not, and you should do this more. But we speak different languages, so you need to be as specific as possible with what you're requesting from everyone, actually. So you cannot just simply rely on luck. So that's still in the communication sort of aspects of it. And then, yeah, I would say the next step is content. And there,
Sorry, just to the communication. I think people should not presume as well because we become very presumptuous, thinking this is staging environment. For you, staging might be something else than for me and for developer. So make sure that staging is staging and live is live. And if you have a, let's say, production that does not mean live, that you tell us. So we we are
yeah,
not complaining that production that in one company means live is not indexed, so I think sort of explaining each other what everything means, and we calling things the same things because we seem to, we tend to jump from one company to another, and different developers have different words for different things. So I think that goes to communication. Make sure that you understand what every name means, because you know what
that's
it means,
true.
they know what it means, but does it mean the same thing to you both?
Exactly.
So I think that's one thing I would add, but I think you sort of said it. It's just spell it out for people that don't want to hear it.
Definitely. And I think the example that you mentioned with live and production is amazing because when I heard this the first time, I was like, isn't live live? Why do they call it production basically? So either way, yeah, it is quite important. Perhaps another important thing is do block those other environments. And I don't mean by robots.txt, that's not enough. Make sure you have that. Make sure you have a no index on them. And make sure that they blocked with a username and password. You really do need all of these steps because if one breaks down, at least you have the other ones, right? Many times I've seen that people were incredibly sort of trustful in the way that they implemented the blocking, but it still happened. So my question was like, how did this happen if you blocked it like 4 times? Well, we didn't block it 4 times. That's how it happened.
We just did robots, and they don't realize robots is that just recommendation. It doesn't
Yeah,
really mean
exactly.
it's going to be. So you need several steps.
You,
Yeah,
you
that's
you'll
true.
still get indexed. So
Yeah.
username and password I found to be the most effective one, but of course make sure that if that fails, there's a no index there and whatever.
Exactly.
But that's a small detail, but one of the most important ones,
Oh yes,
perhaps.
yes. Okay, we were going to the content after planning and after communicating and making sure we understand each other. So, talking with understanding and listening with understanding, we're moving to the content part, which everybody knows is extremely important, because if there is no content, there is nothing to rank.
Exactly. Now, content is a great one because after link building, I think is the most expensive thing to actually do on the website. Now, with content, we took the approach similar to what we did with developers and designers, for example, and product managers. With content, we spoke directly to the content editors and content creators, again, in order to be on the same page. It's not enough to assume that they know how to create a SEO-friendly page, if you want to call it like that, or a user-friendly page. So you have these discussions with them. What I would recommend is that you create of course, sort of like an SOP, but a universal SOP, let's call it that way, everything in one document. That's what I recommend, so that everyone can sort of see and comment. I highly encourage this because that's the only way that you can test that people are actually engaging with what you've wrote there. And it's not just another SOP that will sort of be buried in the company archives. So after the creation of the SOP, and this again, this communication, it can be as simple as a Google Doc with comments and approvals and so on. We also sit down with them in an open meeting in order for them to be able to ask questions and so on. And after that, what we do is create page templates. So obviously your website is going to be quite huge, but some of the web pages will be extremely similar in terms of structure, at least. I'm talking here about something simple like slot reviews or casino reviews or whatever you name it. Usually you would want or you would like to have a similar structure because the topics are mostly the same. The name of the slot or operator changes. And you need to spend a lot of time on making sure that your page template is really killer compared to anything out there. You need to have differentiators there. It's not enough to take your, I know what everyone is doing, and I'll simply call it out. You take your top 10 competitors, you look at their structures, you look at their headings, and you're sort of creating something that is a combination of the 10, right? And you're hoping that by doing this, you're gonna be super in depth in your page and so on. I think that's a great starting point. I think that worked particularly great even 2 years ago or so. I don't think it works the same way anymore, simply because that's simply what I see in my experience in the SERP. And I think that if you don't have a differentiator or a unique selling point, a USP basically for every single page, then you're missing out on something. And the easiest USP, if you want some tips and tricks today as well, for me, the easiest USP is proven personal experience. So basically, unique insights from the creator of the website or the people working at the website, from the content creators or content editors or the team behind the website, you name it, your author, your whatever it is. If that author is also well known for something, that's a plus. But these sort of unique insights are what's going to help you stand out from a very crowded competition. It's hard to do. Don't get me wrong. The finding a unique selling point is hard to do, but it will be so rewarding long term, basically, because then you're not going to wonder why are we not ranking and they're ranking and so on. It will be so much easier to be able to rank properly if you have something unique in the eyes of Google or Googlebot, basically.
So basically,
So
here we should go into the EAT principles to actually have a real person there, maybe an
definitely.
expert enjoying this slot or person actually engaging with this casino. But it's still, is it enough of uniqueness? Because as you said, the slots are RTP changes, name changes, one graphic changes, but it's all the same. Like really, they are the same. And casino reviews again are very much the same. It just depends if you are on Curacao license or Malta license. There is not much that makes them so special. They all offer the same games, same operators, same bonuses. Someone gives you 100%, someone 110, but it's just bonuses. So is it enough just to have a really, really good EAT to be the differentiator?
I would say so. I would say so. It's simply because, look, when you compare, I mean, you would be surprised when you look in the SERP to see how many of them are incredibly close to each other, sort of
Mm.
common information. It's exactly what you mentioned. But what I'm lacking in the SERP even now basically is finding competitors that are doing something different, and every time I find one basically I'm jogging it down because I know that's going to be successful in the future. So if you don't want to rely on just domain authority, link building in order to create a differentiator, if you don't want to rely on branding to create a differentiator, because we're going to get to these points a bit later as well, but obviously they are big differentiators, because then, the question is, why should Google trust this page and not this one? They're both the same, sort of. And that's when authority sort of kicks in. But if you don't want to rely on that because you're small, you're just starting to start to rank for all kinds of long tails and so on, because that's how it happens, then I think that your best chance is to create differentiators on page. And you will not be as reliant on off-page differentiators, let's say. Let's call them like that.
Amazing, amazing. Good, good. I am not that strong on affiliate. I mean, I'm usually more with the operator side. I have some experience with affiliate, but nowhere close to your experience. That's why I'm asking, just like really out of typical SEO curiosity.
Yeah,
Good. So differentiators.
this
I mean,
conversation is
it
great.
it is important. I mean, I spoke to one girl and she was telling me how you can fake it, and I was looking at her like, isn't it just easier to have a real person? Like the steps to create good to fake it.
Sometimes
It's
it
just
is.
easier to be a person.
Sometimes it is. And I know that on the topic of even AI content creation, I know it's so, it would be so easy, right? It would be so easy to create the content. It would be cheaper as well, incredibly cheaper actually. But my question to this is always, I mean, I don't want to be idealistic. If people want to make money in the short term, that's fine, and they should do so, whatever. But I'm a bit idealistic from this point of view, because I'm always wondering, if everyone is creating AI content, then isn't this content in 5 years going to be the same across all platforms and written in the same way with the same things? So that's a danger for the web for me, as I see, generally speaking. So that's why I'm not encouraging it. It's not that it doesn't work. Probably it does work, and in specific niches and markets, it works even better. But that's not the point. The point is that we're always looking at building a healthy product long term, and I don't think that just by spitting out AI, you're going to do that. You're going to create that. I don't think that's going to happen.
Absolutely, because the AI is taking the information from the web to learn from. And if we're just creating more and more of AI content that is learning from itself, we're creating all of those
It's a
taking
no-brainer,
its
right?
own tail, and we're gonna create very,
Exactly.
very, very bad websites. So
So I would say
anyone who
that
doesn't do that is going to win, basically.
the prerequisites for ranking are incredibly higher now, maybe the highest they've ever been. And unfortunately, you have to put in the effort in order to be able to rank properly. Fortunately for users, or unfortunately for the ones, for people considering to open up a website, for example. I think just the prerequisite is higher, the costs are naturally higher, the know-how needs to be better of the people you're working with, and so on. So that's the reality, the harsh reality of it.
No, it is not going to be cheap. If it would be cheap and easy, everyone would be doing it. You would just create AI content on a simple WordPress theme that you didn't even think of how to set up, and buy cheap links, and then you are millionaire. If it was like this, that would be really, really superbly easy for all of us.
I think
That would
so.
be great, but it's not. But I think I thought of one fantastic differentiator, and it came from one affiliate I spoke to, and he said, I would love to pay more for this. And I thought, is anyone actually doing it? And they said video reviews of the websites. Like actually video reviews, like you click here, this is how you deposit, this is how you claim the bonuses, because they are always usually just like, tables with data and maybe some pictures, and that's it. And I thought like
Yep.
that would actually be a good differentiator. So if I
It's a
would have
great
to, I would rather
differentiator.
create a nice reviews or ask someone to create, let's say I'm creating website in German, which I don't speak. I would ask someone to create the German reviews with videos, and you can just use Canva. It doesn't have to be expensive, it just needs to be inspired.
Exactly. I think you mentioned the great differentiators. There's many like this. For example, this is probably one of the best, because I haven't seen, up until now, maybe I'm wrong, I haven't seen one single website that does this specifically for reviews, basically, and does this in a good way, in a cool way, in a something where I can say, wow, this is just great. So I haven't seen this, and I think it's people are a bit afraid of the investment it takes in order to create all of these videos.
I
But
see.
again, I think solutions can be found here to make it work. But if I'll tell you what happens when you propose something like this in house, maybe as well. Um, you're the SEO, right? Video content and video creation is probably in another department altogether, basically, or you need the know-how or you need the resources for it. And it's quite hard to convince people to go sort of all in on idea of video reviews, basically, and invest quite a lot there when they cannot see an immediate sort of return on it. And it's the same with so many other things in SEO where you know it will be amazing, like branding, for example. You know it's gonna kill everything else, but sort of people still feel a bit reluctant. Branding is still like a thing in the clouds, basically, that they cannot sort of grip. So yeah, I
Any
do
investment
understand
in
the
SEO
challenges.
is difficult. Any investment in SEO is difficult. They just think it's a little bit of content
Yes,
and
you
we
need to
get some
trust
results.
it.
Yeah.
You
But
need to trust
if
the long term.
if branding didn't work, then casino.org, as gamblers, none of them would be, like it's proven that it works. It takes
Exactly.
time, but it works. So it's a yeah, but any investment in SEO is difficult. It's very, very, very true.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
think
you're at the
people still
content.
see sort of the branding like a bit of a mountain, and they're too afraid
It's
to
like
climb
you're
it.
branding if you are operator. Like we've got the big ones, but we are just
Mhm.
affiliate. We just want to be affiliate 1, 2, 3, affiliate 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, you can be affiliate 1, 2, 3 for 3 years, like that,
Yeah,
but not for 10.
yeah. Hopefully, then you sell it and start over.
True.
Good. So what's next? We are at the great content creation right now. Sorry, we
All
looked at.
right. Yes. Let's get back to basics. So, assuming that you talk to your all of your content editors, content creators, and they know what to do, the first thing that you do is you ask for, of course, from each template, let's say 5 pieces at least, and you start to actually check if what you've talked about is validated. Again, this is quite important because you don't want to send an order, let's call it an order because maybe you work with an agency or whatever. You don't want to send an order of 1,000 pages and just realize only after that, oh, it's not exactly what we have imagined from a content perspective, right? So you start small and then you scale up like that with continuous feedback loops. I think that's the best thing that you can do. The loops, the faster they are, the better it is for everyone, basically, in order for everyone to learn and to be on the same page. I would also give you a couple of tips and tricks when it comes to internal linking. I wouldn't let it in the hands necessarily of the content creators or content mappers or content editors. And there's, of course, the main reason for this is that they don't have the overall view on the entire website. They're not maybe so familiar with your URL structure, the hubs that you've imagined, and so on, basically. So probably I would separate this and have, let's say, an SEO team member or someone do this, someone that understands very well the entire structure of the website. And there's another sort of tip here. If you suggest internal linking to content creators or content writers, editors, you name it, what they'll do is they'll try to unnaturally sort of insert the internal link inside of the content. It's completely not their fault for doing this because your instructions were to put the internal link in there, but they'll create an entire section basically in order to just insert an internal link that perhaps wasn't even that important. So what I would say here is let the guys do their job there, and only then you come in and you see where you have availability for internal linking, basically. Let's call it like that, okay? You don't need to force it. And the more you force it, the worse it is, basically. So that's it. Okay. Now, in terms of numbers, because maybe for the more business-driven people looking at the podcast as well, people will sort of ask, okay, but how many pages do I need, and how many links do I need, and when can I start seeing some NDCs coming in, basically, or FTDs or whatever? Of course, you'll need to be patient. So, in case I haven't mentioned it already, and you need to work with the right people. Again, that's definitely needed. But I would say that you cannot expect a real traction without having a significant portion of the market, let's say, of the intents in the market. By market, in this case, I mean the search market.
Yes.
Let's say people are interested in different topics. Populations in different countries are different. Um, Search volumes are different. It will always depend on something, but you need to cover the market before you can have any sort of uh, dreams of monetizing. Okay. And another thing related to monetizing, because we're getting into this area, is forget about monetizing at early stages and forget about stuffing your website basically with CTAs and affiliate links. If you do that, and if you have that sort of mentality from the beginning, the fact that I need to sell with these pages, then you're not heading in the right direction for sure. And the reason is quite simple. You then just have a website that is aimed at selling. And again, this is quite a big red flag for giving users any sort of value, if you want to call it like that. So do your job and create impactful content. We'll get to some product sort of differentiators. If you have them, amazing, but sell subtle. Okay, so add a conversion element here and there. But to be honest, whenever I see, I'll give you a small example. Whenever you go on an operator page and you have in the middle of the page, you have another table with 10 more operators, although the article is about that operator specifically, yeah, I tend to not think that that's a good move. And if you want to add those conversion elements, do so on click, for example, with a pop-up that appears only for the user and so on. So be smart about it. Just be smart about it. Someone that is not going to convert on a page is not going to convert if you have one or if you have 100 go-to links or affiliate links in there. Okay, so if you have someone that wants to convert, they'll find your conversion element and click on it. So don't be too scared about that. Okay. Of course, you need to make it sort of accessible for them. I'm not saying don't, but selling should not be something you think of in the beginning for sure.
Again, that would be very difficult to sell any C level. Let's invest in this project, but don't expect that I'm going to sell anything on it. That might be a very tricky
That's
conversation,
true.
but I see what you're saying because from SEO point of view, it's all about creating uniqueness and value. And then once you have enough traffic, try to sell it. Not that you try to sell zero traffic, which we see a lot of those affiliates building up, asking for fixed placements on 500, 600 euros, sometimes thousands, and there is no traffic. There is no value to it because the website literally started 2 days ago. So I see your point, but as well, it might be a little bit tricky to sell unless you're doing your own
It
project.
will be for sure. Maybe a disclaimer, maybe we should have said it in the beginning of the podcast, was that I'm talking here about 90% of the time, I'm talking about long-term strategies. So I'm not really talking about get rich quick sort of
No,
schemes or
yeah, that's not what we are after. If you want to churn and
let's
burn, then
create an affiliate, rank it, and monetize
exactly.
basically.
No, no, no. If you want churn and burn, then go on Medium and create, 10,000
You can do so.
parasite SEO articles. They're going to be closed in 2 days. We don't do that here. We give a proper advice to people that actually want to do something proper, something that brings value to
Well,
their
I, I
customers.
I hope the iGaming industry is only going to get better if we just do this more and more and more, basically. But
It's
let's
all
see.
about education, and that's our goal, is to educate. So
Perfect.
we have got the planning, we have got the communication and documentation. We have got amazing content that is going to be difficult to create if you want to do it right. And we have got the numbers and the expectations. What's next?
Next is the link building budget, and
Oh, yes.
overall, the way you think about links actually is next. It's worth to say that it all depends again on the market. Um, and in some markets, Google is, again, fortunately or unfortunately, not as good as at detecting link buying strategies, for example. So in some markets, you can probably go and do that more successfully than in others. Again, if you want my long-term advice, which is definitely not about link buying altogether, it would be outreach and PR. I'm yet to see a very good competitor in the casino or betting space, by that matter, that does PR and outreach in a successful way. consequently. So not just like a one-time campaign that was successful and then you don't ever do it again. I'm using this example all the time because it's so impactful. I'm using Pornhub in order to showcase the power of smart creative strategies. Pornhub has a yearly sort of report with what people like and dislike in sort of all of their different countries and markets. And that is becoming viral every time they release it. That is being taken by all of the big media outlets and used all the time. Now, I'm not saying we should do the same. I'm saying there are still creative ways that we haven't leveraged as an industry, basically, in order to make this work, in order to make outreach and PR work. I'm a big fan of the concept. With Digital Mint, basically, we're trying to get this closer and closer to reality for our clients. I still think there's a huge, learning curve for the industry as a whole when it comes to this, because everyone is set immediately on link buying whenever you're talking about link building. They're not even considering anything else apart from that. So that's a bit my personal, let's say, issue with it. I'm not saying, again, link buying doesn't work. It definitely does, especially in smaller markets. I'm saying that if you really want to get the links that your competitors will never get, the creative way is the best way. And again, here the problem is that your investment most of the times goes to waste, kind of, or let's say is not as transparent and as impactful than you saying this link is 400 euros, I'll get the link. This doesn't happen with the PR campaign, and people should know that from the beginning straight away. So if you again, if we're thinking long term, I would do that, and I would try to have a creative team behind it that only does that, only focuses on what can we do today, how can we get these media outlets to actually publish us, even though they never publish gambling, basically. How do we create connections with journalists in order to make this happen, and so on. So if you're serious about this, you can do that. And I can promise you that the long-term investment in, let's say, 3 to 5 years is going to be significantly different with PR and outreach than it would be with link buying. And the quality of the links, the same, completely different.
I think how to do it successfully is combine. Do some link buying so you have some juice coming, and then create right next to it, right when you are buying the links, something amazing that will pick up the other links. And once your campaign one is running, you show the numbers and then start to work on another. Problem here is, and I know you gave a really good example for even dodgier industry than us, but it is that we get stuck and we don't think outside of a box.
I don't
But I
think
love
so.
it. And
Yeah.
if you succeed in any PR campaign, please let us know so we can make an episode
Well,
about it, so people can actually learn
we're
that it
working on it.
exists. Oh, very good. So once it's done and you can share, and if you're happy to share, that would be great to show people like, yes, it actually works. You just need to be patient, because the thing is, anytime you start something, you want content links, content links, content links, and show your management. I spent my budget on these many pages and these many links, and this is what we're getting, because you have to. So being creative is a little bit crippled by the expectations of your management.
Exactly, exactly. And I like that you mentioned content and links. Perhaps a final point that I would like to bring is the something else. We talked about unique selling points when it comes to content creation. And what can you do? You can do EAT, right? You can get an expert in to actually say something about the brand. You can get those video reviews. But with video reviews, you're already walking into a direction of product differentiators. And I think that's here where SEO is not sort of considered there, but it's particularly important in the relationship with the product team. As Gamblers is so successful, in my view, because they have this tremendous sort of complaint system. Okay, that was the starting point of many other things, but that's how they started with the complaint system, and they actually fix an issue for you,
Yes.
which is amazing. You as a gambler, that's what you want. Several other competitors draw their success from the user engagement. If you're looking at betting websites, the successful ones usually have a very strong tipster community. And People just sort of go there for the tips given by the tipsters, or they just want to engage with what they're sharing and so on. Many other websites create communities basically on site. Again, I've seen, but objectively, I would call them shitty websites, but because of their community, they were ranking like crazy for all kinds of things. And you're wondering, as an SEO, you just have a look at that website and you're wondering, how is this possible? How is this possible? And then if you start digging deep enough, basically, you'll find that behind it, it's a community of 100,000 people that are go on the website again and again and again each and every day. So I would say that the final thing for today, perhaps, is find product differentiators. So find something that brings the users back. It's probably the hardest thing to create because you cannot lie about it. You cannot lie to your users, sort of. If they will like it, they will come back. If they will not like it, they will simply not come back, and you haven't created a successful product differentiator. So you really need to be truthful to yourself in the first place about it. When we tested something very simple with free live casino, and we actually offered the free live casino. It was a live casino, and you got it for free, and you could play. It was we were amongst the first competitors to do so. We saw that we were ranking for it, although our page wasn't as fantastic and our product wasn't as fantastic, but we actually nailed the intent. You would get exactly what you were looking for. If you went to our competitors, you would get a top table with all kinds of live casino suggestions, basically. So that was not really the same thing, right? And they were a bit lying to users. They were trying to get the users with something and then convert them somewhere else, and we were giving them the real deal. So I think that's the hardest sort of thing to do, to find a product differentiated that is powerful enough for people to sort of come back and back and back again to you. That's
I
it.
love it. I love it. So for this first episode, I think we will shoot another one because there is so much to go into. For example, for the fantastic links into sponsorship, which there are links you cannot get unless you sponsor. So
Yeah.
stay tuned. If Roman agrees, we will have a episode number 2. But for the one, it's preparing is the preparation part, the mapping, the preparation and the planning. Then is the communication and documentation. Then fantastic content that needs to be not AI generated bullshit that everybody else has. um, think of your numbers, be patient because you're not going to succeed tomorrow. So learn how to talk to your management about, the 1 year investment, 2 year investment, 5 year investment, and be original with the links. Don't rely on a basic link buying because it's changing, and be creative. So that would be for the number 1. And number 2 is going to be all about the product differentiators, about sponsorship and all the other things that we didn't touch because we're running for almost 50 minutes now. And
I just
we
looked
can
at the
run for
time and
another hour.
I can't believe it, basically. So yes, yes, for sure we can leave some for another
Yeah.
time.
So we're definitely coming back. Thank you very much.
Cool. Ivana, thank you.